is Thursday, January the 14th. I am your host, Casey Phoenix, and this is my daily thought, which shouldn't be that long today. My therapy sesh yesterday, Love on My Mind, was kind of long. It was like 30 minutes, but this is going to be kind of short. And KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. Also, podcast is on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Pandora, yada, 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 all that stuff. If you're watching this on YouTube or Daily Motion, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for YouTube, followed by the notification bell. That will let you know when I upload new videos. KIRWKC on Instagram. I upload videos on IGTV as well. And Facebook.com/KIRWKC. Also on Twitter, KIRWKC. So we got that out the way. And I'll probably say it again at the end. Where to start? Oh, and I know what I'm doing this weekend. I'm doing a movie recommendation. I decided on that like an hour ago because I'm working on something else for my other channel, and there's a movie that I have to mention on that channel as an example of what I'm talking about. And I was like, you know what? That would be a good movie for the movie recommendation. So yeah, I'm doing a movie recommendation is what I'm doing. Where to start? Okay. So I had to transfer some money to one of my accounts that I barely use. Like I use it maybe once a year or something. And on a financial level, I am not a licensed financial advisor, so you can still do what you want to do. I'm just telling you this is unsolicited advice. Always have more than one bank account in the sense of more than one bank. Don't have all of your stuff with just one bank. Don't have it all with Bank of America. Don't have it all with Wells Fargo. Don't have it all with Chase. Don't have it all with, I don't know, the other ones off the top of my head, but those are the most well known. Don't have it all with Citibank. Don't have it all with Capital One in Charles Schwab and whatnot. Try your best to make sure you have several accounts open. And of course, where you're not paying any monthly fees. You want to make sure of that, because you don't want to have a whole bunch of accounts open and you're paying monthly fees, but then you may or may not keep that much money in the accounts and stuff. So you have to balance all that out accordingly. And for one of my accounts, which I don't have any monthly fees on that account, it's a no fee account. I use it once a year, maybe twice, I guess. And I had some money in there, but I opened another account with another bank. And I was like, okay, let me just go ahead and transfer that over. That's in there. I'll still leave that account open, and I might put something there later and do that. The only reason I did it is because with the other bank, and the reason I'm not saying names is because I'm not receiving a check. So I'm not saying who I move what with or whatever, because I'm not receiving a check. But the reason I moved the money to and open the account with this other bank is because, oh, thank you. It's 3:33 on the clock. And for those who follow me, you know what I'm talking about. But for the bank that I moved it to, it doesn't do fees for international transactions. Because when you travel internationally, if you're out of the country, they tack on more fees is what they do. And with this particular bank, they don't do that. So I was like, you know what? It'd be good to have this account with them. So that's why I opened it. And I already had a relationship with them anyway. So it's like, okay, fine, let's go ahead and do this. So that was done. In the midst of rushing, and there's a point to the story. In the midst of rushing to set everything up, I said, okay, transfer this amount. I waited a few days for the money to transfer, and it didn't. And I'm like, that's odd. Usually it happens within 2 days or less. And that's with any transfer I do with any of my accounts. So I'm just like, okay. So I log into the new bank account and they're like, you need to verify the temporary deposits. And I'm like, oh. And I'm thinking, well, the original request wasn't allowed to go through. So it's like void because I didn't verify the account I was making the request from in doing that. So I verified the deposits and then I submitted the request for the exact same amount again, is what I did. Being in a rush. Being in a rush. So then, after it was verified, the account I barely use goes negative because I barely use the account. So I don't keep money like that in that particular account. So I only was requesting what was there. So it goes negative. And I call up the new bank and they're like, oh, well, that's fine. We'll make a note of it, but honestly, it's not really going to affect you because we can see that it's the same amount. And she was like, this happens all the time. And I'm like, oh, okay. But for the bank I made the requests from, they're like, well, there was money requested, it wasn't available, so we're charging you an overdraft fee. My first reaction was to say, okay, let me call them up, let me explain what happened, it's clear what happened, and just ask them to reverse the fee, you know. And then I let it marinate for like a day because I hadn't called them yet. I was waiting for all the charges to settle out and everything. And I hadn't called the bank that of the account I barely use. And I was like, you know what? That was my fault. That was my fault. I was in a rush to get it done quickly. Instead of, and also I jumped to conclusions. I assumed that because the transfer didn't go through and because they needed verification of the temporary deposits, that it voided the original request of what I had requested. But there wasn't anything in writing that said, hey, you need to verify the account you're requesting money from. Since it's not verified yet, your first request is void. You need to resubmit the request again. I didn't receive an email like that, but I made the assumption that that was the case at the time because I was in a rush just to get this stuff out the way. And as I thought about it more and more, I'm like, you know what? I have a good relationship with this old bank and they would more than likely reverse the fee. But why would I ask them to reverse the fee when I assumed and I rushed to do this? And it was my fault. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take the L on this one. I'm gonna take the L. So I logged into one of my other banks. And then I just transferred a little bit more than what the account was in the negative is what I did. And I was just like, I'm going to take the L. Taking responsibility. That's what I did. I took responsibility for that. I took responsibility for my actions because I know I was rushing and I didn't receive anything in writing telling me that the original request didn't go through. I should have slowed down. I should have called the new bank that I opened the account with and said, hey, I had to verify the deposit. Did that void the original request? And had I called the new bank, they would have said, no, that doesn't void the original request. It's going to go through. And then I wouldn't have even entered the request in a second time, causing the overdraft on the other bank account. But I didn't do that. And as it marinated more, I didn't feel right calling the old bank. And I don't want to call them the old bank because they're still my bank, but you know what I'm talking about, the other account, the other bank. And saying to them, hey, this happened, it was a mistake, duplicate, everything else. Because that's a me problem. That's not a them problem. That's a me problem. Now, if it would have been a computer error where you click on something and somehow it did it twice, that'd be a little bit different. And that's been known to happen on credit cards and things of that nature, where sometimes the browser gets hung up and it'll charge again or do whatever again. It'll do the same transaction again. Things like that happen sometimes, but that wasn't the case. We do things in life where we don't want to take responsibility, even though it was our actions that brought about the situation. You know, cause and effect. Actions have consequences, good consequences and bad consequences. It's all about decisions and how you want to navigate. And I've mentioned cause and effect, I mentioned consequences, and I mentioned that type of stuff. But believe it or not, oh, my head is itching. I can't wait to cut my hair again this weekend. But believe it or not, I've never done a daily thought or an episode for Keeping It Real with KC about actually taking responsibility in doing that. And that's why I'm doing this episode now. Sometimes you got to take the L, is what you got to do. The good thing is that if you're still living and breathing, you have a chance to make it right. If you lost, you can dust yourself off, which I plan on talking about that more in a different daily thought about success and failure. And not that this was, my particular situation was that monumental that it was, oh, it was a success or, oh, it was a failure or anything like that. I'm not implying that. I'm talking about life in general right now. Where something lands in front of you. It lands in front of you because of the actions that you took. Now, not everything that lands in front of you will be based off of your actions. However, even for the things that aren't based off of your actions, your reaction starts then and there for the action itself, where you're taking responsibility, where you're choosing to take responsibility or not to take responsibility. And do that. Sometimes you have to take responsibility for stuff that doesn't even involve you, but you just got thrown in the middle of it. You know, I'm sure that happens at work all the time. It's like, I didn't do this. Why is this on my desk? Well, they messed it up and we need for you to fix it. Okay. But I'm speaking more to I'm speaking more to the point of taking responsibility for your actions. If something happens in a relationship that you did something, if you lied, and now that person doesn't really trust you that much anymore, gotta take responsibility. You were the one who lied. If you have a relationship with someone and another life comes into play, whether you're male or female, you might want to consider taking responsibility. It just doesn't happen on its own. It takes two to tango. If you do things that are not above board, which, and again, I'm not judging, because you know me. I have an opinion about something, but I don't judge anyone. I do not judge anyone, because who am I to judge? I'm saying that, I'll give you an example, because I know someone who they did certain things that weren't above board, and it eventually caught up with them, which is why they're currently incarcerated right now. You have to take responsibility. Just like me, which I believe I told the story, because like I said, I've dealt with many people from all walks of life. And I was offered the opportunity to go into stuff that wasn't above board, being a transporter of sorts, going across state lines and all that stuff. And I forgot what the amount was, that it was either 2,500 or no. That was another thing above board I was offered. That was 5,000. That's what it was, to be a transporter and go across state lines, because they were like, oh, you know how to talk to people and they'll never suspect you and yada, 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 yada. All you have to do is take it to the locations and drop off, pick up the money, do this, do that. You get 5. That's it. I was like, that's fair time. No. And then the 2,500, that was when I was working in customer service. And one of my associates, like I said, I've dealt with all types, but again, I don't judge people. One of my associates was like, hey, you see credit card numbers all the time. If you can just take down the credit card numbers and their information, I'll give you 2,500 for every single one that you bring me. I was like, no, that's fair time. So it's about taking responsibility. Now, let's say one of those two offers, I took one of those individuals up on the offers when I received them. And let's say that, oh, well, I'm transporting, I get caught. I can't make up any excuses. I can't say, well, such and such really needed the money and I wasn't making that much. I was only making $11 an hour at this job and I was making $5,000 just to drop stuff off and go back and forth per drop and everything else. No, I would have to take responsibility because I had the option to say no. I had the option to do it differently. So taking responsibility is not always easy. Sometimes it is easy. It's like I said, everyone has to take an L every now and then. You just take the L, you keep it moving. A new day is a new day. And then other times it's like, man, I got to deal with this. but it's still taking responsibility. And people who know that you're stand up, people, believe it or not, even when you take an L sometimes, if you don't make excuses and you just take the L, you're like, yeah, I messed up on that one or whatever. They may not say it, but there are times when people will respect you more because you were willing to take the L and take responsibility. Now, if you take 100 L's in a month, I don't know if there's going to be any respect there. That's going to be something else. But I'm just talking about in life where if something just happens and then it's like things come up, you got, and then you take responsibility. And then some people take notice of that on the job. If you mess something up on the job, then just own it. Now, again, if you're messing stuff up and you're not getting the order right at Applebee's, every time somebody places an order and you bringing out something totally different from what they placed, I don't know what to tell you. But if it's something where it happens from time to time, we're all human, whether we want to recognize that or not. We're all human. We all make mistakes. So, but if you mess up something at work and you're like, you know what? I messed that up. Let me fix that. Don't apologize. Because I told you I don't do apologies. I do not do apologies. Don't apologize. Take responsibility and fix it. If it's fixable. If not, pull it together and move on. Which will be another daily thought. But yeah, take responsibility. That's all. That's pretty much all I have. It amazes me how people aren't willing to do that sometimes. How they make up excuses, how they look to blame other people, how they look to blame this, how they look to blame that. But they're not willing to take responsibility for their actions. Their actions are their actions. Everything is cause and effect. It's about choices, decisions. You always have a choice on what you want to do. For me, I just chose to send the $40 to the bank to fix the overdraft and call it a day. Here's what I did. Instead of calling up the bank and asking them to reverse the fee, which they would have, because I've been with them for what, almost 8 years now. They haven't had any issues with me except once. That's it. Out of, probably like 8 years. Never had any issues with me. So if I called them up and was like, hey, can you reverse this? It was an accident. And I give them the old song and dance and everything, they would have reversed it. But why do that when it was my fault for moving too fast? It was my fault for not calling the new bank to confirm that the original request was going to go through after I verified the deposits, the temporary deposits. So, yeah, I'm taking the L. And they'll never call me up. The other bank will never call me up and say, oh, gee, thanks for taking responsibility. Because they don't know. They don't know. But it's something that I know. It's something that I have to live with. And that's the other thing, too, with taking responsibility. You will not always be praised for taking responsibility. It may be a situation where only you know that you took responsibility. And it'll just go with you to the grave. Just like these two stories that I told you, where I could have been a transporter, and then also I could have been moving credit card numbers as well. And there's a lot of other stories I could tell you about that you'd be like, say, what? But no. Some things people will never know. Some things you'll take with you to the grave. And not everything has to be praised. Not everything has to be praised, because the only opinion that matters, as I've said before, is yours. Can you look yourself in the mirror? Can you look yourself in the mirror? If you know that you took responsibility, even though nobody else knows in some situations, and it happens, if you can look yourself in the mirror, you're good. Because you took responsibility. So yeah, that's all I got. And I need to get going. KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. Again, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe and all that other jazz. If you are watching on YouTube, sharing is caring as well. Thank you to everyone who's been listening to the podcast. I sincerely appreciate it. I told you that I'm adding more tarot card readings, but it will not be until February when I'm doing that. I'm getting everything together. And there's 2 other things I'm working on as well, which my goal is to do one of those this weekend, like get the format and the foundation more sturdy and get that done. But as for this weekend, it's going to be a movie recommendation is what it will be. So let me get going. Until next time, be blessed.